Hello, 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 and welcome another Monday here in the UK. To also my friend from New York who is here, who's had a very, very busy weekend, as we've just discussed off air. And of course, no less than finishing up last night's AEW review. He done a great job on over at True Hill Heat, so go and check that out as well. But I want to bring in, of course, the A side of the cassette, as I always say, the wrestling oracle himself, Mr. True Hill Heat, and of course, Powered for SP3. How are you, my friend? And I've said you're going to be tired, but is this like a cooling down phase for you now here on Powered 4?
I have some time to rest and re-energize. There's no major shows this week. Want to first of all start off the show and say Happy International Women's Day to all the beautiful women out there. Appreciation to them in the wrestling business, outside the wrestling business, all around the world. Shouts out to my girl, Tia, as well as my daughter, the two women in my life, as well as my mother, my sisters. Shouts out to all of them, and shouts out to any of the women watching the show.
Well said, well said. That's why we've got you, SP3. You're going to be the backbone of this sort of stuff, where I, forget these kind of special occasions, of course. And well said as well. And coming up on the show, we're going to be diving into AEW. We've got a little bit of WWE. I've come back with the most diabolical what if as well. I'm bringing it back in this week, and of course, true or false. We'll get that in as well. I've got some really top notch ones this week, and they're proper random as well. They're not on any kind of theme or anything. So I'm trying to catch him out, people, for those of you that have been watching that. But I want to start the show at the top, of course, and that is, of course, from last night, AEW's Fallout, and then I've got this kind of coming up straight after, so it's like sort of in between. So I know this is going to get that's what people are going to want us to talk about. So I thought, I'll put it in there. I don't want to be too harsh because they've literally got it all day. I mean, it's not even been 24 hours, but trust me, they've had wrestlers. I was just reading some guy from WWE. What's his name? Is it T-Bolt, whatever his face is? He's just tweeted as well. So they're all getting in on it. I'm surprised Vince hasn't come out with something and, getting the sparkles out with all the wrestlers tonight on Raw. Maybe he will. Maybe it's just giving him an idea. But that aside, SP3, because, that is, I know it's at the end. I don't know what you think about it. I'm eagerly awaiting. Obviously, you might feel differently, somewhat removed, but the show in general, SP3, what was it like? Was it everything that you expected? I know you had high expectations going into this, and I would say from what I've heard, especially on my side of the Atlantic, is that it's quite positive, to be honest with you. Everybody, I'll tell you the match that people have been telling me about that I've only just got to check out was the Sting match, especially with the cinematic feel, went down very well. But tell us your feelings about it and the fallout of what was AEW Revolution.
So the best way to kind of sum up AEW Revolution 2021 is it was a great show with a very weird and bad and lackluster and underwhelming finish. Like everything about the main event was perfect. Like the match itself, the pacing, how they used the stipulation, the explosions around the ring were great. How they used the explosions with the ropes was awesome. The false finish on the One Ring Angel when Moxley just kicking the ropes to have the explosion go off in Omega's face instead of kicking out was bloody brilliant. Like in the word, bloody brilliant. I love that.
SP3.
That was one of the best spots of the year in my eyes. And even the finish makes sense because it protects Moxley. The post match with Eddie Kingston fighting off Butcher and Blade to get the ring to save his former friend, sacrifice himself for his former friend, and then we had a fart in church. Like it just felt like AEW got us so close to that climax, so we're close to our destination, and then they completely did a U-turn. They crashed into a wall, And this was like there's been bad spots or bad moments for AEW in the past 2 years. You know, the stuff with Matt Hardy at All Out is one that always people are gonna pinpoint, but they never really had that major botchamania wrestle crap moment. Like WWE has had it plenty of times with Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 19. You know, WCW has a laundry list of them with the Shockmaster, with Booker T. You know something, Hulk Hogan. You know, all of that stuff. You know, it goes back in time. But this one is definitely someone in the live chat for the AEW Revolution Roundtable review on True Hill. He said it was a top 3 botch of all time.
Whoa.
I won't go that far, but you could definitely make the argument it's a top 10 botch of all time because this is the ending of a main event. And these guys sacrificed their bodies. They put their bodies through hell in that exploding barbed wire match. If you saw Moxley's face, it was a Crimson's mask. Kenny Omega's arms were bloody through to the barbed wire. These guys put on an explosive, pun intended, main event that was let down by the explosive, pun intended. So it just hurts me that happened because top to bottom, this was a really, really great pay-per-view. The opener with the Young Bucks, MJF, and Chris Jericho was so smartly worked. It was a Young Bucks type of match, but it added some aggression. They came out looking for revenge due to what happened to their father. I love Chris Jericho taking the pin, not MJF. That's smart booking, and I love what it sets up for the Inner Circle going forward. The pre-show had a really good women's tag team match with Rio, one of my favorite Thunder Rosas, one of the best complete characters in AEW, and Britt Baker. And my words, my favorite female wrestler in the world, Maki freaking Ito. Maki Ito is my favorite thing in Joshi, Japan, American. It doesn't matter what type of wrestling. One of my favorite things is Maki Ito. And she got a Road Warrior pop. She got the biggest pop of the show. And I think you can look at that and go back to the main event as well as with the Christian signing. I thought the Christian signing paid off on everything that they promised. He's Hall of Fame worthy.
We'll get to that.
He's a huge name in my opinion, and he's a huge asset for AEW because they have younger stars and because he can still wrestle, and the fact that he turned down a very comfortable and 6-figure, 7-figure type of deal from WWE to come to AEW, and he contacted Tony Khan to come to AEW. That's not like TNA, because TNA went out their way to contact him when he had his all falling out in WWE, and he basically is betting on himself, and he wants to go out on his terms. And I know there's WWE fans that are upset. Oh, I wanted the Edge versus Christian reunion and the nostalgia. And I said it before, I'll say it again. Don't let Vince McMahon get away with his favorite button on the control panel, which is nostalgia. But I will say AEW overhyped this. And that's why I said, going back to the first surprise with Maki Ito, that was the best surprise of the night because they didn't really hype it. They basically underhyped and over-delivered. The Christian signing, regardless of how you feel about it, I am happy with it. I will say they overhyped it, so it was always going to under-deliver. They should have just had it as a surprise like Maki Ito, and I think the reaction would have been totally different. And the same thing with the explosions at the end. They hyped this up the whole night. 30 minutes. Everything's going to blow up. It's going to be destroyed. Even if they don't finish the match in 30 minutes. After the explosions, whoever survives wins the match. Both of them would have survived. So we still would be watching AEW Revolution. They need to stop overhyping things because it always sets them up to underdeliver.
Yes, well said. Well said. I can't argue with much of that. My only input, I'm assuming you've read or at least heard Mr. Tony Khan. He always comes out and does these post interviews. I don't know why he does that. I've got to be honest with you. I'm not sure it's always a wise idea because to me, it's like, we've just had a great show, but he talks about it like it is a work. I mean, I get we all know it is. I'm not saying I want us to go back, but it's like, it's just very odd that the guy who's pulling the strings is doing that. But in any case, he got, of course, bombarded with that question, and the excuse was fantastic. I don't think that's gone down too well. But listen, if I was him, I would have been like, right, I know I've got to get this right. I don't care if it costs me 20 grand to have some guys out there keep testing it, make sure this thing's going to pull off. Obviously, there's some footage going around of some fans that recorded when the show went off, and John Moxley saying, you know, what the F was that? He seemed better on MTV explosions and whatnot. So I thought that at least, you know what, he called it what it was. They weren't like hiding behind anything, but it was just it was the worst possible time for that to happen. Realistically, like, it could have happened anywhere else in the match, and they could have got past it. But you just, how can you get around that? Like, wrestlers are really good at disguising stuff, but that neither guy could do anything. And I feel for those the most, because they put their bodies through hell. I mean, they're going to be aching and sore as we speak. They'd obviously been planning this for so long. It's got to be gutting for the only thing that lets it down. The only thing that we're talking about and that everyone is talking about is this bloody thing that was just overhyped anyway. I think they had enough violence without needing that in the first place, to be honest with you. I think the explosions were a little bit too over the top. It's not sort of like... and in fact, I took some of your advice from your Sports Keeda appearance the other week, where you was talking about the Terry Funk match and some of the other sort of barbed wire explosion matches, like some of the stuff in Japan, especially. Mate, it's not a patch when it comes to that, because there's just a different vibe and a different feel, and a lot of it is to do with the time that they were in. It was very like odd at that time to be doing that stuff. But this, I don't know, maybe it was a bit too gimmicky, and they put all their eggs in one basket with this crazy explosion that just didn't go anywhere. But yeah, I can't imagine how bad that was. I do want to touch, obviously, you've pointed towards this Christian signing, and look, I'm not disappointed by Christian going. I think it's a wiser choice than, say, Kurt Angle, who done a fantastic job of sort of throwing people. Now, that's good. I actually applaud AEW for getting involved with Conrad Thompson and those guys putting that together. They need to do more things like that to take us off. However, like you said, I think they put a bit too much behind it and tried to ramp it up. If I was them, I'd have probably done it the other way around. I'd have probably had Christian coming in the first time, and then I'd have had Big show up on the actual event to do something. But the only thing I'm kind of concerned about, and you can tell me this, SP3, is what exactly is Christian? Is Christian going to be full-time, or is he going to be like on a part-time gig?
No, he came to AEW to wrestle. And it's the fact that WWE offered him a part-time deal, but this is a full-time multi-year contract. He is back. He has been cleared by doctors to perform again. And I disagree with it's the hype of it all. Like, if Christian just debuts here without what Paul White said on Dynamite, I think it's and I think it's fine the other way around. If they don't hype it and Big Show was the appearance, I think everybody would be surprised. But Big Show signing was not universally praised. So I don't think that if they hyped him up, this Hall of Fame worthy huge name, and he comes out, I think there's still going to be people that be like, oh my God.
I just wouldn't have done the hype in general.
It's not Brock Lesnar. It's not CM Punk. Literally, that's what people work themselves into thinking. And that's why I did a specific rant on them. Check out the AEW Revolution Roundtable or the True Heel Heat IG is up there right now, where I told them that it's that one is on them. Like, AEW may have overhyped things, but they never put you inside a box to make you believe that it was just going to be either CM Punk or Brock Lesnar. They didn't go over the top with the hype. They overhyped it, but they didn't overhype it to the point and say that this would be ground shaking and change the landscape and everything. And if they were signing CM Punk and Brock Lesnar, they would have every right to hype it as that. They didn't, but they did overhype it.
Yeah, I saw crazy stuff. I saw Batista was being linked. I even saw somewhere, I was reading The Undertaker. He's turned his back on Vince. He's going to get in there. But yeah, there was some ridiculous. The only thing I kind of feel like they sold themselves a little bit short, and it's like a little bit of a snidey one for me, is it's pay-per-view. So I know they were trying to drive that up a little bit more. Maybe they thought, oh, hang on a minute, we're onto something. We can get these videos out. And the only disappointing thing I would say, other than the hype, as you rightly said, is that Kurt Angle stuff. There is a debate to be made whether you would consider Kurt Angle as maybe a better signing than Christian, even on a part-time basis. So it might have been better if it was someone a lot lesser, and then we would have only got a better we would have been happier, I think. But like you say, I do think they overdid it a bit. But hopefully, for Christian, I mean, it's an interesting one. It's almost like WWE just wanted that contract on him. Just don't go there, in other words, especially while we're doing this stuff with Edge. And it's almost so it's kind of it's clever, I think, from AEW to capitalize his interest and the fact that he wanted to go there. I just hope that I hope that it's not going to be a straightforward, in the title picture straight away, and we get a little bit more of a build and some real reasoning as to why he, wants to sort of end things his own way, and hopefully as well, not too much poking a stick at WWE, because that can be a downfall as well. Sometimes you just got to keep doing what you're good at. Don't worry about anyone else. I know that obviously for someone like Big Show, yeah, there's angst to grind. Although I was reading earlier on, apparently Vince McMahon was one of the first guys to call him and congratulate him. Can't imagine what that was like, getting that call. But you're not going to mess with Paul White, are you? So let's be honest. But that was fascinating. But yeah, I mean, Christian, for you, where do you see him? Where's he going to settle in? Is he going to be a guy who's going to go to the top in these big title matches with AEW, or is he going to sit around for a while? And I don't know, is he going to get the Cody stuff for a little bit like everyone seems to?
And I this is another thing that I said on the AEW Revolution Roundtable, and I think that it's partly due to working with you, John. I'm starting to realize the psyche. Maybe it's the UK fans of wrestling, or maybe it's just you, but it is something that I see generally. I feel like wrestling fans have been legitimately scarred by WWE and TNA. Like nothing, like I said it last week, nothing that AEW has done has made me believe that they are going to be like TNA. They didn't bring in Sting and immediately place him in the main event. They didn't bring in Shaq and immediately put down someone that's on the rise on their roster. They put in Shaq to elevate Jade Cargill and to give a great opportunity to Red Velvet. They brought in Sting to elevate Darby Allin and to put Brian Cage and Ricky Stark in one of their biggest matches in AEW since they've arrived. So their use of these people that they have signed has been legitimately well done. So they don't give me a reason to believe they're going to be like a WWE or a TNA. So I think that Christian's going to come in and he's really going to help out the younger stars. Of course, there's major stars that I do want to see him versus a lot, like Kenny Omega versus Christian would be great. John Moxley has gone on record and said that Christian is his dream signee because he's always wanted to have a singles match with Christian. Of course, there's the history between Christian and Chris Jericho, but I think the most value that we're going to get out of Christian is him feuding with the MJF. I think that feud is going to be money on the mic. I just think that those two guys know how to talk. Those two guys get humor as well. So that feud will be so full. But in the ring, if Christian is even half of the guy that he used to be, he is one of the most underrated and underappreciated performers of all time by fans and the company. And that's very rare because you either get one of the other. You get someone like a Cesaro who's underappreciated by the company, but I think fans really love him. Or you get someone like a Brock Lesnar who's really appreciated by the company, but I think fans really underrate how great Brock Lesnar is. But Christian is someone that's been underappreciated by both sides, and that's so very rare. And that's why myself, as a lifetime Christian fan, when everybody, all my friends in elementary school were Hardy Boys fans. You know, the girls used to love the Hardys. They were the pretty boys. You know, the grunge guys used to love the Hardys. My hardcore wrestling fans used to love the Dudleys because they come from ECW. They felt more real. I loved Edge and Christian. Edge and Christian brought comedy, they brought charisma, and they just spoke to me more than the other two teams. So I've been an Edge and Christian fan ever since then. I went on record on the AEW Revolution Roundtable. There's a lot of good things for you to watch on there on True Heel Heat YouTube channel. But one thing I will repeat here, Edge has been in the main event of WrestleMania 24. Edge has been in world title matches at WrestleMania. I would say Christian deserved a WrestleMania main event or world title match more than Edge, who's going to be in the main event of WrestleMania 37. But he was never going to get that. This is a man that Vince McMahon wanted to put a blue dot over this man's face instead of seeing him on a television.
I remember, yeah.
This is a guy that he never saw as a top star, even though he was going against the top star in the company, John Cena, in 2005, and getting a bigger reaction than Cena. Like, this is all stuff before he left to TNA and proved himself as a main eventer, becoming the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, becoming a top babyface and top heel for that promotion. And then he came back to WWE, became a mainstay and the lifeblood of ECW before becoming a World Heavyweight Champion and having a great feud with Randy Orton. But it's very, you can literally, you have like a top 5 list. You can literally just do a top 5 list and you pretty much have described Christian's whole entire WWE career. Brood, Edge and Christian, feud with Edge, Captain Charisma and tag team with Chris Jericho, that whole feud. He leaves, comes back, ECW, goes teams up with Edge, and then Edge leaves, he becomes world champion, Randy Orton feud. And then you could totally forget the last 2 years of Christian's career in WWE because nothing really happened because they didn't do anything with him. So how are you not happy for this man betting on himself and turning down a comfortable contract with WWE because he actually wants to wrestle for us? I don't get professional wrestling fans sometimes. I just don't.
Well, SP3 is passionate there for Christian. And look, I wouldn't say I'm a huge Christian fan, but I appreciate Christian, and he has been undervalued a lot in his WWE stint, no doubt about it. I have thought when he was doing the Peep stuff, Tyson Tomko, I thought that's the time they should push the button and they should have gone with him because his promos at the time were quite funny as a heel and he was doing some great stuff with John Cena, but they never wanted to capitalize on it. So, again, he went elsewhere to try and get that success, which, I guess to a lot of people, maybe they feel he did. He did win the title there, but it was one of those things where he's come back. He's obviously, Edge is there. He must have literally got an itch for it and thinking, hang on a minute, I've been here. Why are you not doing anything with me? So good on him. He's not about the money. He's gone with Tony Khan and AEW. Let's see what they do there with him. I'm just, all I keep saying is I don't want them to do too many signings. That's all. I don't want to see Kevin Nash come in next week or anything like that, or Eric Bischoff show up. I don't want anything like that. But, we'll see. We'll see where they go with that. Now, SP3, let's cool you down a little bit more now, although this might make you a bit hot, to be honest with you, so I'm worried. Now it is the most diabolical what if, and I've not given him any preparation for this. What if I know we're not going to spend too long on this. I'm just going to be very broad with this one for you, Mr. SP3. But Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, we know, for those people that don't know, and maybe I'm just showing my age a bit more here, but the setup for a long time, and they'd even done a couple of matches that you can watch now on the WWE Network at MSG. They did a couple of house shows in your neck of the woods, Mr. SP3, down at the Garden twice. And the first, and I've watched both of them because we did a whole episode on this. And people kept saying to me that there weren't too much chemistry or not enough buzz. But I tell you what, whether it's just a sign of the times today, but when I was looking at the crowd, everyone seemed really up for it and what they were getting. So I know on paper it might look a bit like, yeah, why would you put Ric Flair with Hogan anyway? But we have to say Ric Flair coming with a ton of momentum. world champion, even has the belt with him because he never gave it back. So they're claiming he's the champion. He's all WCW. At the time, he's one of the biggest heels. And NWA, WCW were notorious for their heels, whereas WWE were notorious for putting all their eggs in one basket with a babyface like Hulk Hogan. This seemed like a match made in heaven. And I guess this What If SP3 is, you know, we look back at some gem matches like Rock and Hogan and Michaels and Angle. You know, there's these gem matches you look back at WrestleMania. Is this one that we kind of got cheated out of? And if it had have happened, would we have been looking back at this as like a, you know, when WWE keep harping on about, you know, especially with their video packages, that moment, or when this happened at a WrestleMania, or would it have been overhyped, and would WWF, you know, at the time right to do what they were doing? What if SP3, this match took place? What sort of legacy would it have left?
Well, after everything I just said about AEW Revolution, I just want to also say that if this match happened in 2021, yes, it would have been overhyped, and yes, fans would have been disappointed, because I just think that's the nature and the culture of fans in 2021 is to take a little bit of overhyping and take it to the extreme and then get upset about it. So that's right. What I think. But this was in 1992, and actually, a little hidden secret that I would expose right here on Powered4SP3 is this is actually a little bit of basis for a series that I was trying to work on. They got left on the cutting room floor of rebooking major cards. Right. And one of those cards was WrestleMania 8, because if you don't know, by John Scott's great explanation of this match, this is one of the earliest examples of a scrapped major WrestleMania matchup. I think the only thing earlier than this is probably WrestleMania 7. They were going to do Hogan and Warrior. They couldn't do good sales there, so they decided to do Slaughter and Hogan, and that's a whole other story. But this match in particular, what if Ric Flair versus Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 8? Would it be looked back on as a good moment? Would it have had drawn? Yes, it would have had drawn. Why do I say that? Yes, it did get bad house show attendance or sales for the tickets for the house shows prior to WrestleMania. But flash forward 2 years after WrestleMania 8, and one of the biggest draws in wrestling was Hulk Hogan signing with WCW and versing Ric Flair at Bash at the Beach. It's still WCW is like top 3, top 5 biggest buy rates in its history and biggest gates in its history. So this match would have drawn at the Hoosier Dome in Indianapolis. Basically, what you have to figure out with, this match is easy to book because Flair wins the WWF Championship at the Royal Rumble. Hogan was screwed. You still had like Saturday night's main event and stuff in between where you could have done Hogan defeats Sid at that show and then sets up Hogan versus Flair. And then it's easy, the real world champion of WCW and the current WWF champion versus someone who feels like he's the real world champion. He's the real WWF champion, Hulk Hogan. The match and the build up books itself. It's everything else on the card that you got to structure. Because if you remember, Flair versus Savage, Hogan versus Sid. How you switch it out, you kind of play with the matchups a little, and you give us a matchup earlier than what we saw. WrestleMania 13 was main evented by one of the worst main events of all time, Undertaker versus Sid for the WWF Championship. And I think I found a great way for us to avoid that match. You just have it earlier. You do Sid versus Undertaker at WrestleMania 8. They turned Undertaker babyface at this time. They turned Sid heel at this time. You just do a double turn instead of having them have other feuds that get them to the role that you want them to go into WrestleMania 8 as. You just do a double turn and they feud with each other. Two big men, that's going to work in 1992. Now it's really about focusing on the two guys left. Guess what? They were already feuding with each other. Flair doesn't verse Savage. Undertaker doesn't verse Jake the Snake Roberts. A feud that's been building since SummerSlam 1991 was Macho Man Randy Savage versus Jake the Snake Roberts. They had so many great moments in the fall of 1991 into early 1992. That build up and that rivalry that they had built deserved a major pay-per-view matchup, and it deserved a stage like WrestleMania 8. I think you still could have got, Liz into play like you did with the Flair Savage feud. You already had Jake the Snake punch Liz prior in the build up to this. You just do a little bit more. People are going to be engaged. It's the Macho Man. It's Jake the Snake Roberts. So I basically just gave you 4 new matches based on this what if. WrestleMania 8 rebooked.
Wow. And, I wasn't expecting the full booking either. So you've kind of made real reason as to why that should have happened. I'm exactly the same as you. It's been one of my, just as a fan, one of my things. I'm always kind of scratching my head like that match at that time. It seemed like all of the stars were aligned, the right time, right place. And like you say, we got it a couple of years later and it's still got a huge buy rate. And, I just think if it had been a couple of years earlier, it would have been even bigger, in my opinion. But it's interesting you talk about those, the attendances being down and everything. I'm just so puzzled as to why, because I generally thought they were like, the 2 biggest at that time, and you could not get any bigger or better from both ends. And of course, you've got to throw in Bobby Heenan as well, who, mate, Bobby Heenan and Ric Flair. The only thing I can put that to is it's like having CM Punk and Heyman, like 2 great talkers together. Man, it was magic. So they really could have done so much more stuff. And the other fascinating thing, and people can probably find this on YouTube, is there were promos done between them where they were talking about the match that are out there now. So it goes to show how far down the line that had gotten until they said no. But yeah, thank you very much for that, Mr. SP3. Well done on this week's most diabolical what if. You did well. You did very well. No pre-planning in that one either. Guys, we're going to be back. We're going to be back with some WWE after this and finding out some interesting news and developments there, along with, of course, True or False. We'll be back straight after this quick little advert.
I do. You work here, right? I do. That is Chicagoland, not Chicago, you idiot.
Oh, this could be the end right here.
20 years, all we've ever done is put gold on people's waists and turn the athletes into champions and then legends. Oh, griminess. This belt is about fighting. This belt is about the streets.
Guys, meet the fabulous idols. I'm here to tell you, you're not that fabulous.
He's a Sin City playboy as well.
I'm not going to wrestle unless they play my song. Fight me.
There we go. Chicagoland Championship Wrestling. Don't forget, guys, sign up now. 50% off. Don't forget when you use this promo code. Very, very simple. Just type in SP3 at the promotional code. 50% off your first month. 25 wrestling promotions all available, along with some great video content on there from the likes of your truly here True Heel Heat, or every day they are almost dropping videos, reviews, like SP3 has been saying. He's been up till the very early hours of last night doing his one as well. So check those guys out, along with things like wrestling, Stu's Wrestling Podcast. Our other boy, Mike Angus, is everywhere doing ring announcing and added time, of course. That and a lot more. Go and check it out now. Powered4SP3. Type in the code SP3, 50% off. Now, coming up next, my friend, I'm chucking this one in there. I've added this to the agenda because I thought, you know what, this seems familiar. I'm sure we did this. Yep. Roman Reigns, Daniel Bryan at Fastlane. This is like deja vu. I remember this, I think it was 2015, if I'm right. I think it'll be 6 years ago now. Yeah. Obviously, that's the match they're going with. A lot of people now, SP3, are suggesting we're going to get a triple threat match. Is that the plans that you're hearing about as well? Because I know Daniel Bryan's been getting a bit of a wave of momentum, and I think people are kind of getting that that feeling that he's going to be added into it, which I don't know if I totally agree with, but where do you stand with that? And I mean, it is a bit odd they've gone with this, but are they trying to get this out of the way with early so that Roman can progress to Edge, and then that doubt's kind of gone again? It just seems like a real deja vu, because this is the last time these guys had this match at this exact same spot between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania was for another exact reason of trying to get Roman into the main event without nobody talking about Daniel Bryan as less as possible. I kind of see all the same signs here, but does this not give people crazy hope, like I've just been explaining there? Where are we sitting with this, Mr. SB3?
I don't think it gives people crazy hope. I just think this is something that they do at Fastlane. They give you the match that they were originally going for at WrestleMania, because we talked about Dave Meltzer and his whole thing last week with Wrestling Observer Awards, but Dave Meltzer was always able to kind of predict the WrestleMania card for like a number of years. I think the last time he really got it on the nose was WrestleMania 33, but it seems like ever since then they kind of changed their mind like late in the game. And the Edge Roman Reigns situation, they kind of, I think, came up with that closer to the Royal Rumble than people think. Because for months, we were hearing that Roman Reigns versus Daniel Bryan was the plan for WrestleMania. Before that, we were hearing Daniel Bryan versus Roman Reigns was the plan for the Royal Rumble. So this is something that they wanted to do for months. So they're just basically getting it out the way before we get to WrestleMania. I think that this does, though, is more of a telling sign of what I've said on a couple of different podcasts, especially my boy Rick Ucchino over on Sportskeeda Wrestling after SmackDown called Smack Talk. They really legitimately are looking at Edge as an option to win the main event of WrestleMania this year. I really do believe that. Like, people, I understand Roman Reigns is doing the best character work of his career and the best character work in WWE today. He's the best thing going on in the entire promotion. But Vince McMahon loves him some nostalgia. He loves him some nostalgia. And you know what's his favorite part of the nostalgia button? Because people think that the control panel is just the controls and the buttons that you think he presses. Nostalgia, Ric Flair impregnates somebody, Hulk Hogan comes out and we try to act like he's not a racist, all that good stuff that he does to pop ratings and get people's attention and get people re-energized in WWE. But no, when he presses nostalgia, it opens up a whole nostalgia control panel. And his favorite button on that control panel is one final title run, the redemption run. He loves giving his former stars that one final title run. He did it with Goldberg in 2017 and then again in 2019, and I am convinced, will do it with Edge in 2021.
So hang on a minute, you're giving a very early spoiler here. So you think that Edge is going to come out victorious as well as going into that match? You think he's coming out on top?
No, specifically what I just said, because I was very precise with my wording. Edge will be a world champion in 2021. I did not predict him beating Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, but we got like 8 more months out of the year for him to get the job done. I just think that they are putting Edge in this position. It is a reasonable option that he could beat Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. Do I want that? Hell no. I love Roman Reigns. I've been a part of the Tribal Chiefs table since way before all you guys, and I was there before he said it's my yard now. After he beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania 33, I was one of the only people cheering for him. So I am with Roman Reigns 100%. But I know WWE, and I like to temper my expectations. So yes, I think that the result of Roman versus Edge is very much in the air.
Interesting. Yeah. So, well, I'm kind of glad that you've kind of cleared that. So I personally, I don't enjoy triple threat matches, especially in the main event of WrestleManias. I'm all about one-on-one. And I think you almost have to share it a little bit more than you should have to, especially if you're, in a big match. So I kind of think one-on-one for a big world title match should always be the way. So I'm glad that you've kind of cleared. I've got to ask just a little bit more then. So if Daniel Bryan, what is he? Are there any plans that you've heard about of what he's going to be doing at WrestleMania? Because I assume that he's going to have something given his wave of momentum that he's been getting. Is there any sort of early signs? I mean, the thing is with WWE, they don't. It's not like they put out like planting seeds from 6 months ago and that makes sense why he's going against. This could come out of anywhere. So is it like potluck who we're going to get here? Is it almost like going into a lottery, or is there's somebody on the horizon?
Yeah, WWE doesn't do it where everything makes sense. That's why talking about before with AEW, I have more faith in AEW because there's long-term stuff. Sort of, it seems to pay off a lot more than I'm used to with like WWE and other shows. Fifth generation Carney, he is one of the elite good eggs. He's always thank you for the support, good brother. But yeah, WWE doesn't try to make 2 cents, but there is someone that he's kind of had interactions with that I can see him going into WrestleMania with, because they're doing a feud that I thought would be for WrestleMania a little too early. And I think that is Seth Rollins. I think that I agree with you. Daniel Bryan feels like he has more momentum than he's had in a while. He had a great matchup in the steel cage against Jey Uso on SmackDown. A great promo to kick off the start of the show. Very impassioned, very relatable, talking about feelings of failure. So he did great there. And I just think that, he fails again. And then Seth tries to come up to him and try to make him embrace the vision. And then we're off to the races at WrestleMania. And those two, I've seen them live in Ring of Honor. And I know I've seen them tear it up in WWE in 2013 when Seth first came in. So I know they could tear it up at WrestleMania. And that would be one of the best matches on the card. But I think that there's a little too much hype as far as Daniel Bryan versus Roman, because the only way we get to that triple threat, as far as Daniel Bryan being inserted into the Roman Edge match, is if Bryan beats Reigns at Fastlane, which I don't think is going to happen, and I don't think anybody wants it to really happen.
Well, I was thinking more along the lines of a ridiculous ending, like it ends in a DQ or something, and they have to give him another title shot.
Roman's been very protective of his character and very protective of finishes like that. I think that he was very upset with how the finish went down with Kevin Owens at the Royal Rumble, so I don't think that he's going to come back in his next big real title match that he has on pay-per-view. He's going to try to get a finish like that. I just don't see it happening for Roman, because he knows how the fans react to him to begin with. So he doesn't want to set himself up for that failure. But I will say, as far as triple threats, there should be a lot more hype and a lot more people saying that this might happen instead of this triple threat. I think we might get a triple threat for the WWE Championship. If Vince feels the heat and he wants a little bit more, he wants to make WrestleMania bigger, which was the report in Wrestling Observer newsletter, that Vince kind of blew up the plans to WrestleMania, and he wants to make it bigger. You make that call, you add an extra 0, and you call up Brock Lesnar. And you do Brock versus Drew versus Bobby Lashley. My guy, Alex McCarthy on Wrestling Daily, said it best. Every one of those characters just make sense, and they make sense to orbit around the WWE Championship WrestleMania season. Drew beat Brock. Brock wants to get revenge for Drew beating him last year. Brock also wants to get the WWE Championship back. Bobby Lashley has the WWE Championship. He's always wanted to verse Brock Lesnar. He has his unfinished business with Drew McIntyre. This is a triple threat that makes a lot more sense than Roman, Edge, and Daniel Bryan.
That would be pretty cool. And also, I think Heyman would outdo his own record about managing two guys on the same. Like, I think he would have 2 title matches almost, going in with Brock, because there's no way Brock comes back without Heyman by his side. I think that will still happen when he finally, if he does. I still think that happens, because Brock so many times has come out on interviews and says, I ain't doing nothing without him. So I just think that always sticks now. But yeah, very interesting. Go on, my friend.
as long as they put them on different shows and we see like firsthand the difference in how Heyman's character reacts to Brock, because he feel like the way he portrays his whole relationship with Roman, especially on SmackDown, the way he was like looking at him for like approval, like to see how Roman would react to the cage match. So he knew how to react. Like he fears Roman, while I think that internally we are seeing that he feels like he controls Brock Lesnar, but he's unable to control Roman Reigns. So I want to see that firsthand. Paul interact with Brock on Raw, Paul interact with Roman on SmackDown, and then eventually they can build up to a mega WrestleMania match.
Mate,
do it in
I plan a year ahead.
Do it in Dallas
right now.
In front of all those fans, Brock versus Roman, and people will legitimately
Heyman on a stick.
Oh my God. People would legitimately forget all the apathy that they had going into WrestleMania 34. And even though WrestleMania 31 was great, people had apathy about that match going into that event. So this would be the first time a Roman Brock WrestleMania match would have legitimate hype to it and people wanting to see it.
I already want to see that. Now you've sold that to me. There's so many reasons. Heyman could manage, would have to go and manage in both, which would be so interesting. Just like imagine the weeks building to it where he's trying to keep them both happy with the egos. One guy on one brand, maybe the other on another. Like it just sets up this magnificent match. The only two guys, you know, in the streak against each other again. The third time as well at WrestleMania. Perfect. And of course, Roman in this new role that he's in with all this. I just think keep it with Roman as long as possible, you know. I really hope. But yeah, very good there, Mr. Go on,
and he's never beaten Brock at WrestleMania.
No.
Seth got involved the first time and then Brock murdered him the second time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we all thought that was the one we all were thinking Roman's winning at last, and it still didn't happen. So it's crazy. Okay, tell us a little bit about this then. Sticking with WWE, thigh slapping. I mean, what's happening here? SB, I saw this come out. I think this was maybe the back end of last week or in the week. But what has happened to prompt this from WWE?
So apparently there's a sign at the Performance Center basically telling people that they are banning or restricting thigh slapping. Thigh slapping is basically what most wrestlers do when they perform a super kick or a punt kick, a kick of some kind, to have the pop to it, to have the sound to it. And I just want to let people know, because I think there's a misconception. Because of people like Jim Cornette. I respect Jim Cornette for what he's done for the wrestling industry, but as far as opinions and hot takes, he is one of the worst individuals to get a hot take from, because even though he's a wrestling historian, he tends to forget wrestling history. Kind of ironic. But thigh slapping was not created by the Young Bucks. No, it wasn't created by the Young Bucks. Young Bucks basically came up with the idea to use the super kick from watching Shawn Michaels. Because guess what? Shawn Michaels used to thigh slap. And he's a teacher at the Performance Center. Kind of ironic. I think this is kind of the theme of this whole story, is that everything's kind of ironic. That Shawn Michaels is a teacher at the Performance Center. He's in charge of NXT. And he has to be one of the people to tell people you can't thigh slap. And they're going to look at an old Shawn Michaels match and be like, hey, coach, what are you doing in this video? How did you get that nice sound when you kicked?
I was gonna say
and then take it back. Shawn kind of made it popular in the 90s, but take it back. Even in the 80s, you had Chris Adams. Chris Adams used to do the super kick, and he used to do the thigh slap. He was the one, kind of the originator of the super kick, but he used the thigh slap even back then. Even like wrestlers now, like a Randy Orton complaining about, I think he had the beef with Tommaso Ciampa, I think it was last year, saying, oh, thigh slap, all you guys do is thigh slap. And then he immediately thigh slapped when he did a punt the next time. Like, it's like everyone does this. Like, literally, I've heard wrestlers on podcasts this week say that they don't even realize they do it. It's just something that they naturally do. It's how they've been taught the move. So this doesn't make any type of sense. I feel like this is someone who's very enamored with the old school way, but it's forgetting that this is something that comes from the old school way. It literally comes from the 80s. And then you got the people that just upset with super kicks in general. They feel like the Young Bucks have sterilized super kicks to the point that they're just a transitional move, and they can't believe it because the super kick used to be one of the most devastating moves of all time. Oh, wait. I just saw 1995 WWF when Shawn Michaels used to do it as a freaking transitional move. It wasn't even his finisher until he was the main eventer. Like, he literally used to do the super kick like 3 moves into a match. Go back and watch. For everyone in the UK, I know we got a bunch of people watching in the UK. I know a bunch of people watch on demand on Powered4SP3 and on their YouTube channel. So I know you guys love WWF SummerSlam 1992. Watch the match with model Rick Martel and watch when Shawn hits the super kick and doesn't even attempt to go for a pin. And don't tell me the Young Bucks made it a transitional move. They basically just made it what Shawn Michaels made it to begin with. And then he just decided, you know what? This is actually better than a slingshot suplex. Let me actually use the super kick as my finisher. He just decided to do that. And in 2021, no, a super kick is not going to be a finisher. It's more of a transitional move. And I like the way the Young Bucks do it. Like how the Young Bucks used it against MJF was perfect. Just beat his veins in with super kick and then finish off the other guy. That was perfect. That's how you should use super kicks. But this whole thigh slapping ban by WWE just feels like the old school people trying to push their way on the newer school, and their way would be to teach them to make the move as effective as possible. And the thigh slap adds the pop as the sound to the super kick, which makes it more effective.
I wonder where they're going with all that, because I was thinking like thigh slaps, not just in super kicks, but like you used to see it a lot anyway, like Brett and a lot of his stuff in around that 96 era, like when he does some punches and stuff like that in the turnbuckle, there's a lot of that. And he's considered arguably one of the greatest of all times, like storytelling in the ring, bell to bell storytelling. So I'm like, where are they getting this from? And I hope we're not going to get into that situation where we're using so much technology now that all of a sudden they start dubbing it in or something over the top. You know what I mean? Because you could potentially see that sort of thing start to happen, the way some of this stuff creeps up on you, which I just think was terrible, because I know none of us are back there. And again, it's very few people that are going to be allowed back in, but wrestling should always be about, at the end of the day, it's a live show for people to attend, and you take that away and you are really missing one of the big, the big things about going to an event, some of the excitement. I don't know what you do. I really don't. I think it's a ridiculous thing. And like you say, these coaches, these are guys that have done that most of their career. So what they're going to have to unteach themselves, which is instinctively given to them, to teach somebody else. It makes no sense at all. Like you say,
it's very much weird, but you said it perfectly. Like, I always go by the motto, keep the same energy. If we're going to keep that energy on thigh slapping, then you got to teach, like, the Randy Ortons of the world. When you punch somebody, don't stomp the floor, don't stomp the ring to make it sound like you got to keep it across the board. There's no enhancing of regular moves. Like, thigh slapping shouldn't be the one penalized. You got to do it across the board, or don't do it at all. And personally, you shouldn't do it at all.
Yeah, I agree with you. And to finish up on some wrestling parts here, we've got Enzo and Big Cass returning to wrestling. I saw a lot of pictures from him the week before Big Cass as well. Tell us a little bit about this then, because, and you as well, being from New York, like with Enzo and all the rest of it, he was, when I went to New York and watched him, I mean, he was over like nobody's business at that time. He was still at NXT. And he was the biggest pop of the whole damn thing. And there was a lot of good talent back then as well on the NXT. But tell us about them coming back and what the future is at the minute then for these guys.
Yeah, I think that people don't realize how hot Enzo and Cass were in NXT. Like, I was at the original TakeOver Brooklyn in 2015. And these guys...
So was I. We were both there then. There you go.
Nice. They weren't even on the main show. They were on the dark match.
That's right.
The match tape for NXT the following week. And the pop that he got, I was literally walking into the building while the match was going on, and I heard I heard the whole slow. My name is Enzo Amore, and I jetted. I jetted to my seat because I was like, no, I don't want to miss this. This is like my favorite part. Like people don't realize that type of energy that show had, and seeing Enzo on TV and then finally getting to see him in person, people just were connected with him so well. And Cass being his right hand man, it was a great act at the time. They just got to the main roster. They did their whole breakup angle, and then those guys, a lot of their personal issues and backstage problems came out to fruition. Big Cass has gone through a lot. He's dealt with addiction, but honestly, they did their whole return on an independent show that was connected to Impact Plus. Luke Gallows was the one responsible for booking Big Cass on the show, and he made the save for Enzo in the matchup. And honestly, Big Cass looked phenomenal. He looked like he was in the best shape of his life. For someone that have seen people in my family deal with addiction and not really take the steps that they needed to, I think that Big Cass deserves a lot of credit for going through that and coming out of the other end and looking like he is a better man. Hopefully that this is something that starts off a positive trend for Enzo and Cass, because I feel like they've had a black cloud over them ever since. Like the situation with the G1 Supercard and the issues they caused between Ring of Honor and New Japan. I think it was too much heavily focused on Enzo and Cass, and they were viewed as the villains in that situation when the real villains were Ring of Honor for not letting New Japan know about the situation and really not choosing the right way to kind of introduce them as characters. And that kind of fell apart everything, and they've kind of been in purgatory of the professional wrestling world ever since. So I am looking for them to get back on track. Honestly, I think a place like Impact Wrestling would be great for them and get them a lot of attention. I think that a place like even Ring of Honor, even though they had the issue with bringing them in 2019, Ring of Honor needs type of stars that get them buzz and get people to pay attention to them. And Enzo and Big Cass are that. That's as long as they are dealing with their personal issues and backstage problems. If they are on the up and up and on the right path, they deserve another chance.
Absolutely. No, it'll be interesting because obviously Enzo, for a time, he was doing those crazy antics where he was turning up in WWE crowds. I was like, what is he doing? And there's that whole thing for a little while. But it's good to see, them coming back and kind of giving this like a proper go. Like they look serious. They look like they, want to take it serious again and get their career as a tag team. And like you say, you bringing up that night, because I think there was two to choose from that night, and I felt like we picked the best one because I don't know what else was going on. What was going on that night with Brooklyn? It was Brooklyn. Was there another event that night? NXT Takeover.
I know
the first one.
Yeah, it was Takeover and then SummerSlam the next night. There might have been other stuff in that.
Sure, there was like an ROH show going on. But in any case,
there was an ROH because I did that whole weekend because I went to Philly the day before Takeover,
right,
for the ROH event in Philly. So I don't know if they did a second straight night.
I think they did a second because I was in a dilemma on what one I should go to. But you talking about International Women's Day, I got to say, listen, Sasha Banks, Bayley, like male or female, it's still the best match I've ever seen in person. Like I was so sucked into that match. I kind of had good expectations, but man, they just blew it away. I mean, honestly, it's good that you went as well because you know what I'm talking about when that feeling with the crowd was just pulled in and everybody was just going along for the ride. And I don't care, male, female. The match just was amazing for me. It's the best match I'd seen, like in a live show, where I just kind of my hat of being the review guy came off, and I was just pulled in by it. So that's a good night to go back to there, Mr. SP3. Okay, well, to finish up things, then we always do this, and we'll try and run down these as quick as we can because we're going to be running slightly over here. But it's true or false for Mr. SP3. We're giving him some tough ones, I think, this week. I hope, because he done 100%. So the last couple of times. So we've got to be careful. Now here we go. Here's the first one. True or false? Here's the statement. WrestleMania 2 is the only WrestleMania event to take place on a Saturday. Now remember, WrestleMania 2 was from 3 different locations that year, if you remember. I think it's the only one where it's come from 3 different places. But true or false, Mr. SP3?
I mean, this was the only WrestleMania that was in 3 different places. I never heard it was the only WrestleMania on a Saturday, so I'm going to say false.
It is false. It is false. Well done. I thought I was going to trick you there with adding the 3 locations. However, I will say one thing. It was not on a Sunday either. It was on a Monday. So that's where I thought I could trick you there. He's got through it again, people. I don't know how he's doing this. But there you go. He's one up already. Randy Orton once used CM Punk's This Fire Burns entrance music before it was given to Punk himself. True or false?
Wait, that way. True. TRU, true.
It is true. Yes, well done. He's getting him. He's knocking him out this time. I tell you, we've got to be careful. Jake the Snake Roberts never held a title in WWF or E.
True.
He's got it again. Okay, here's a long one. This one's got to throw him off, surely. The WWE Championship match between Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 19 was the first WrestleMania main event to feature 2 competitors who used their real names. I think he's going to try and go back in his head now, and he's going to go through every single WrestleMania.
I'm like doing my memories museum is going through my head, and I am going to say true.
It is true. Well done, Mr. SP3. Well done. Because that one could throw you off. Okay, I'm going to do the last 2. Let's see how we end up. Sheamus once worked as a bodyguard for the band U2's Bono. True or false?
I was only prepared this week to get 4 in a row correct. So this 5th one...
This is why I've got to up it. I've got to up it to 6. Because I'm thinking...
It's like... This is very confusing. I may have heard this before and forgot it, but I'm going to say false.
It was true.
Yeah, that one, I didn't know. Like, I probably have heard that before, and it sounded familiar, but I was like...
I'm sure you had flashbacks of last week's rally driver springing to your mind.
Absolutely.
Okay, final one. Rene Dupree is the youngest tag team champion in WWE history. He was just 19 when he won the World Tag Team Championship. True or false?
I'm going to say true, even though I'm pretty sure Tyler Bate came really close.
It's false.
It's Tyler Bate, isn't it?
No. You're forgetting one of the greatest tag teams that ever took place.
Oh.
Nicholas.
Oh my God. I am not. This is the first time I am legitimately angry because I was there live for that. And that angered me. That angered my freaking life. I really just want to remember WrestleMania 34 for how excited I was when Ronda Rousey came out. I don't want to remember how disappointed I was in Nakamura versus Styles, and then immediately followed by a freaking 7-year-old winning the WWE Raw Tag Team titles. I want to erase it from my memory.
Oh, dear. I knew that one was going to get you heat. I knew that was going to get you hot. Because Nicholas is it's like the worst ever scenario. I remember doing the review of it, and oh my God, I was so embarrassed because I had a couple of friends over that had never watched wrestling, and then they watched this one, and then that happened. I was like, no. I was like, it's okay. He's the son of a ref. They're like, oh, okay. Is he like? Because he was pretending it was just, he's just in the crowd. It's okay. But yeah. Oh, well, there you go. I knew that would wind you up. And you was right. You was on the right lines with Tyler Bate and Ren. You know what I mean? Like it was getting there. But anyway, my friend, it's been a blast as always. I've left you hot now. He came on knackered. He's going off more stressed as he thinks about Nicholas and his experience from WrestleMania that he goes away with. Okay, before we go, where can we find you this week? You had a busy last week. I'm assuming it's going to be a little bit more easy going for you, but I don't know, because you are a busy man. But where are we going to find you this week, SP3?
You can see me Wednesday live, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 8 p.m. BST on the Wrestling Daily YouTube channel with Alex McCarthy on Wrestling Daily. Always a great time over there. You could find me on Friday live immediately following SmackDown on the Sportskeeda Wrestling YouTube channel with Rick Ucchino with Smack Talk, breaking down everything that went down on SmackDown this week. And of course, find me with the gang on the True Hill Heat YouTube channel right now. You can check out our AEW Revolution 2021 Roundtable review. Awesome stuff. We break down every single matchup, every single segment on the show. We give our opinions. We get in a couple of rants, a couple of jokes. It's a great time. Definitely check that out. Today, we're also dropping AE Recap with Jimmy McElram, Marcus Cash, and myself reviewing Dynamite in depth, talking about the Shaq match. And is it the best celebrity match of all time? We answered that question on that show. And then Saturday, True Hill Heat weekly podcast. This week, we're going to have Jose Gonzalez of Recons of Wrestling. And then I'm back here with my guy, John Scott, next Monday on Powered 4 SP3.
There we go. Well, it's a busy one. Have we got you next week? I thought you was gone next week.
No. I actually, we are preempted next Monday because real world things call my name. But I mean, we can work on another day, John. Whatever day works for you. You're busy too, so I understand.
I am. No, that's good. We'll sort that. Don't you worry, my friend. Well, thank you. It's been a blast, my friend, to spend this time with you. Very up and down, emotional roller coaster as always. Don't forget, guys, check out powered4.tv where you can see SP3 and True Hill Heat on that platform, along with TNT Extreme Wrestling. That's it. Do the point, the Ronda Rousey point, and any wrestler that wins the Royal Rumble these days. That's where you go. Until next time.
One week though, I think I should point at it, and instead of the WrestleMania pyro, the pyro from Revolution will go off.
Right. I think you got to do something like that for WrestleMania. I think that's what you do the sparkles for. Build the momentum, and then boom, it's going to go off. But yes, thank you for everyone that's tuned in. Don't forget to pop a like, hit the share button, and subscribe, of course. Until next time, I've been John Scott. He's been SP3. We'll be back next time.
Please check out Wrestling Travel. They're a great sponsor for us. They help us with so many different events, so many different traveling inquiries. They are the greatest. They have been seen at Starrcade, Warrior Wrestling, you name it. Wrestling Travel is one of the premier traveling organizations for pro athletes such as ourselves.